Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Maureen Miles. Thanks for being on the show, Maureen.
Thanks for having me. We appreciate it, Whitney.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you on. This is one opportunity that the coronavirus has brought to the show anyway, getting you to slow down enough. We had to lock you up before we could get you on the show.
Literally, but I do appreciate it's help keeping me sane. So I have been wanting to help. I love to help kind of shine the light of this business on, for new people trying to do it. So I appreciate the time to get caught up too. So I am glad to be here, Whitney. Thank you.
Yeah, we are glad to have you. Maureen's a rock star in this space. If you haven't heard of her, you should have. But a little about her. She started with renovating singles and duplexes and successfully made the transition to syndicating 100 plus unit complexes. She's also the founder and general partner of a property management company and construction company. She went from broke to 3,000 units after leaving her job 6 years ago. So, Maureen, again, I'm thankful for your time being on the show. And I want to hear a little about that process and maybe give us some background to, getting into this business. I think a lot of the listeners probably have that single family or duplex that they're working on, just, pushing and dreaming about taking that next step and making it to where you are. And so I'd love for us to dive into that a little bit to help them and myself.
Sure. Well, we were working on small duplexes and singles back in like '06, which is just before the last recession kind of downturn. We started buying a few ourselves because at the time the banks were just lending, you just signed, and they would lend you money, which I got some people in trouble, but we were smart enough to buy on, made sure it cash flowed at least a little bit. I actually still have a couple of those properties today, which is funny. Connecticut, this kind of never really came out of the recession like the rest of the world did. But anyway, so we kind of started doing that. My husband had a job with the city, but he didn't have a great retirement. And so we were kind of looking at just ways of, we wanted to build a future for our kids. We wanted to have something for them. And we thought, even if we could never figure out how to leave our jobs, maybe they could someday, right? So we kind of did it as a retirement thing for us. So if we, bought the 2, 3, 4 families, we renovated them ourselves. I would turn into a pumpkin at like 3 or 4 o'clock. I'd change for work and go do my network engineering job in the evening. So, we renovated houses during the day and collected rent. I'd run them, lease them. And one of the things I do want to share with your listeners out there that are doing it, I used to think I was wasting time. Like, gosh, I wasted so much time doing that with the smaller stuff. But it's what really gave me the experience to be able to go into these larger things and understand any part of it. So anything that is ever gets wonky with one of these deals, or if something starts to slip, I can jump into any aspect of it and catch it or fix it. And so it's really, I think, made the difference between, being really successful at this and just kind of, coasting along, if you will. But what you're learning now doing that is going to prove you well in the future. It's going to help out a lot.
I appreciate you mentioning that. I think a lot of people feel like they've wasted so much time while doing small multis or single family. But I feel like I'm grateful that you feel like it's very beneficial for you and the listener as well.
Definitely. And like the maintenance guys now, I have one that's been with me for quite a while, and he'll take the new guys. He's like, "Don't mess with Miss Maureen." He calls me, he says, "Don't mess with Maureen." He's like, "She'll call you on your BS. Like, she knows." So, I ask him if he did this before they call a vendor out and things like this. And it is important to know and understand that because, then for sure you're representing your investors correctly by making sure that you're not getting overcharged on things. What CapEx projects should cost you. So I think it's a great entry into this. A lot of people we compete with, are doing it from behind a desk in New York or whatever. They don't kind of get down in the weeds like we do, but being in the weeds is what, like I said, it makes the portfolio perform, I think, a little bit better than most.
Well, why aren't you still doing single family and small multis?
Oh, that's a great question. What happened was I built up to about 30 units. So we had about 30 units that I was managing myself, and these were all ones that we went in and renovated. Some of them were vacant for years. I mean, we were buying really dirty, disgusting ones. I kind of like those things that have some issue, but you see the opportunity in them, right? But I got up to about 30 units and I realized that I'd never be able to get to a point where we could leave our jobs. There just wasn't enough time in the day. I had investors that I worked with then, so they earned a piece of those. And I just ran out of time. Like there was only 24 hours in a day. I still worked at night. I realized that what was holding me back was my job. And I mean, I made six figures. I had a good job. I was a network engineer for one of the big telecom companies. I enjoyed my job to some degree. But yeah, I couldn't work any harder. I got to the point where I just hit a max. I didn't know how to get the help I needed. I couldn't just hire a property manager because I would look for some in my area and I would go drive by their deals and I'm like, I would look into renovating this. Like they didn't take care of their properties like I wanted my properties taken care of. So I just hit this wall. And about that time, my work had offered a package for people. And a lot of people had been there 35 years, 40 years. They're there forever. I was only there 12 years at the time. And I came home and I asked my husband, I said, are you okay if I take this package? I said, are you okay with living in one of the multifamilies if I can't figure this 100+ unit, stuff out fast enough? Because once I left, that was it. Like I was going for broke. I was going until I either figured it out or I died. Like I wasn't going to stop until one of those two things happened. And he said, no, I'm okay with that. If you can't figure it out, go for it. And it's funny, right after that, so I did leave my job. I got like 6 months of my health insurance and I got a nice little package. I said, it's now or never. At one of the networking events I went to right after that, I met a guy that he had bought a mobile home and he actually rented his own personal house out and lived in his mobile home and traveled around purchasing houses on like tax auctions and things like that. And so so his house was paid for. And so I went home to my husband. I said, guess what? We don't have to live in a multifamily. We're going to buy an RV. And I actually went and bought an RV. So that was our plan B, is we're going to live in the RV. So, I mean, I was going for it. There was no stopping me.
I love that, just the dedication, right? Just really burning the bridge to going and making it happen like that. And I can relate, but I wanted to ask you, you mentioned, your job was holding you back. You said you're making six figures, and that's probably hard to comprehend for most people, if they haven't jumped into this yet. But tell me, dive into that a little bit more. How was your job holding you back? Maybe it's, probably seemed like a great career to a lot of people, but tell me, how was that holding you back, and what did you see at that time that was going to change by leaving that behind?
So a few things kind of came into play there. One is I had an hour drive back and forth to work every day. That hour drive, I used to listen to CDs. I used to take advantage of it. By the time I got to work, I was so pumped up in real estate because I'd listened to so many motivational real estate CDs and podcasts or whatever there was out there. I remember my husband saying, are there any demotivational CDs you listen to like tone it down a little bit? And I'm like, no. So that was one aspect of it. The other, so I would just get so pumped up. I had all these ideas. I had time to think on my drives and things like that. Then I would get to work and I worked in a room with no windows. I worked second shift, so I wasn't home when my kids were home. I remember I had to be late to work every day if I wanted to get my kids off the bus. So my boss wouldn't let me switch shifts. I made my way pretty high up, and 100,000 plus sounds great. And it is a good pay, but I was really sacrificing my whole life for that. I didn't see my kids. I didn't get to see my husband. Like I said, I would be home during the day, and then at night I would have to go to work. And so there was a lot of sacrifice then. And I also worked with some of the people I worked with were fantastic, but other people were just so miserable. And sometimes you just be in a room with this person day after day after day after month after, for years. And it's just, it would affect your yes. thinking. I know some of you in the IT business, you understand what I mean. And so that was difficult. I remember driving to work one day, and I was driving, and And I'm like, okay, if a car comes into my lane, like I'm not swerving, like I'm not going to swerve. And that's when I started knowing, like it really started affecting me. I'm like, I have to figure out something different to do. And then also I live in Connecticut, so 100,000 sounds great, but it's expensive to live here too. So
you mentioned like you got to the max, you just couldn't work any harder. You're doing, I think, real estate while doing the full-time job at the same time. When did you know that, okay, this is the moment? I know they offered you the pension, or they offered you the package, and so was that just the kicker, said, okay, this is like now or never opportunity?
Well, that was, but what had happened is as I was learning how to work, I started taking some of these networking, different courses, and I attend different events because I wanted to learn how to work with investors. My goal was just to work with the investors on the 2 families and the 3 families, because as you're doing renovations, your funds get tapped out very quickly. So I was trying to pull investors in, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I wanted to make sure I was doing everything legally. And so I started attending these events, and that's where I stumbled on the 100 plus kind of unit kind of deals. And that because before, when I started this, I never imagined in a million years that was even possible, that somebody could own these, or manage them, or you can own a part of those. I thought companies own those, and life insurance companies, things like that. I never realized it was within my grasp. So when I started learning about how to do this, I'm like, well, I got it. Like, I'm good with numbers. I understood it. It just clicked for me. But I couldn't say to investors like, hey, I'm going to pull together $5 million and buy this property. But yet I couldn't do that and still work, because I can say, oh, if there's a problem with the property, I'll go check it out next Tuesday when I could put in a personal day. Like, at the time, I couldn't fathom having people's money, being responsible for people's money, not be able to just react on a dime and, be totally committed to that. So I think that's the biggest thing that held me back. I mean, in hindsight, if with the right partner, you could probably do that, or under the right circumstances, there probably are ways to keep your job and kind of, or merge into this business a little bit differently. But
so you left. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's all. I'm
so
good.
you left the day job before you syndicated your first deal.
Yeah, it took about a year to syndicate my first deal after I left. I had about 4 or 5 almost like false starts, I would say, where deals I thought for sure were going together, and for one reason or another, they fell apart. And those are heartbreaking. I think some of them was harder on my husband than it was for me. I'm just like, okay, let's go attack another one. Like, what are you going to do? But it is hard, because you get ramped up. But I think what people have to remember too is that whenever those situations happen, how far did you get? Like, and I used to lose sight of that. Like, we try so hard, and we're not, it's hard to get that first one done. But each time we try, we're getting that much farther, and we, at first we're afraid to call brokers. So eventually we get over that hump, and then we're afraid to put LOIs in, and then eventually we get over that hump. And then, God forbid, a LOI, somebody accepts your LOI, like, oh my gosh, right? That was the scariest thing for me. It's like, what if they accept it? But you eventually get over that. So I think we have to stop sometimes and realize how much knowledge we've gained. And I tell new people too, is that nobody's born knowing this. Nobody is. And so we've all had to learn it at some point. And so you should never feel bad for asking a question or not understanding something, because we all came from that spot.
Well, and I appreciate you being so willing to answer questions. I know anytime I've had a question, or I see other people asking you as well, and you're just very willing to help, and we're grateful for that. But, on that note of like learning this business, how did you have the confidence to say, okay, we are going to make this happen? What did you do to learn? What did you do to teach yourself, educate yourself about the syndication business?
So that first year when I left my job, I went to every networking thing I could. If it had anything to do with real estate whatsoever, I was there, because I was just fascinating with it. I was literally like obsessed with it. I wanted to gain as much experience I could just from hearing other people and understanding. And I think too, when you're responsible for other people's money, you have to do that. You have to educate yourself to the maximum that you could, because it's what we have to do, right? You can't leave any stone unturned. We can make mistakes, and there are things that we could maybe not foresee, but we have to really make a conscious effort to, just to acknowledge anything out there we can, and to learn everything we can. So yeah, I just went to every networking event. Like I said, that's what really made the difference for me too, is meeting the right people too, because we're able to, maybe I don't know everything, but I know other people that might be good at that. Or if I have a question, I know 10 different people that I met through these different networking events that I could call. And the thing that gave me the confidence for that first deal that actually went through all the way, it was 117 units. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember standing at the bottom. It was like a U shape, the buildings, and it was like one straight strip up. It was like a T-shaped driveway. And I stood at the bottom of that thing, and I was looking. I'm like, all right, like, I had never worked with a third-party management company before. I didn't know what to expect, and we raised $1.1 million for that deal, which is a ton of money. At the time, seemed an incredible amount. And I remember thinking, it's like, all right, if all else fails, I'm like, I can manage this sucker myself. Like, I could come in and I could rent it out myself. My family, we could fix it. We could turn units. Like, we could control this ourselves. I knew we could do it. So that's what gave me the confidence to do it.
Wow.
And I got into it and just realized I was good at it. And again, it came from my experience with the 2 families and the 3 families. It's really not much more than that. It's actually easier. It is easier than the smaller ones.
So any doubts during that year, or times where, maybe you and your husband were like, maybe I better, be looking for another job, or maybe I wish I hadn't have quit.
I never said that once. I never said I didn't quit. For my soul, I had to quit. I don't know how to explain it, but we did all kinds of side jobs too. I have a relative that ran a roofing company. I went and got like HAG certified so I could mark out hailstorms, and I was doing all kinds of crazy things.
Wow.
Called shiny object syndrome. I would get stressed that the money wasn't coming in yet and that I wasn't able to accomplish it yet. So I get sidetracked on just little, like side hustles, you can say, that would make some money. And that in turn would pay for more real estate training too. So not only support my family, but pay for more real estate training. I do remember a time when my husband was standing in my office door and one of the deals had fallen apart. It was a pretty good deal that we were supposed to get involved in. It was before my first one came through. And he's like, are you done with this? Like, are you going to go back to work now? Like, did you get this out of your system yet? And I remember looking at him and saying, you just don't understand. Like, I'm never going back. Like, I will live under a bridge, like, before I have to go back to a normal job. Like, once you're free from that, and I'm sure a lot of people out there do understand, but once you're freed from that, and you understand that you can survive on it, even if you have to, I'd rather work 120 hours a week than 40 hours a week for somebody else, right? So 120 for myself. But once you're free, you never want to go back, ever.
Love that.
So, yeah.
So, here's a question for you. I was just thinking about this, thinking about just the listener's situation and just the experience that you have in this business now and what it took for you to make that first deal happen, the commitment level, just the mindset behind, just pushing forward like that. I love that. But if you were, let's say, knowing what you know now and we're in those shoes right now that you were in right before you quit. Okay, before you went to your boss or whoever, and the coronavirus has hit. Okay, coronavirus has hit. Everything else is the same. You've done the single family, you've got that experience. You're wanting to pursue the larger deals, but now there's something happens. But right now it's the coronavirus, and we don't know what's going to happen in the economy over the next few weeks. But would you still quit?
Well, I would. In fact, I sent out some information today to somebody that was looking to show, like, they're going to do a class on how to make money online. And I said, now's a great time. One of the things that I think made me able to quit is where I worked, we kept having layoffs. And I was like the lowest person in like the whole eastern half of the United States. For like every quarter, my job was on the line. So that it was such uncertainty to me. And so I think with things like the coronavirus and like these things, we realize that we think our jobs are the source of security, but we can be wiped out in a second. It doesn't matter even how hard we work and how dedicated we are. When you have somebody, many states away, deciding your fate on numbers of an office or something like that, and you just have no control. So I understand the mindset that there's safety in a job and why people think it's great to go to work every day and get that payment. But I'm sure a lot of people understand too that it's a very risky thing too. And I'm kind of grateful that I was put on that layoff list every week or every quarter, I should say, because it made me realize that I wasn't safe there. And so I think with this coronavirus, if you're making money, depending on maybe you want to shift into what you're making money on, but at least if you have something on the side going to rely on yourself a little bit, there's a lot of ways out there to make money. You just have to find it and be dedicated to it. And, when we started this business, I mean, there were some times that kind of sucked because I remember like our neighbors, our family were having fun. They were going camping. They were going to the football game. We're like, oh, we had to paint on our clothes. And, we go pick up the kids from school and have paint. I'm like, oh yeah, our bedroom is this color, or, whatever we were painting and working on. And that was hard. But, they say we do what how do they say that? Like entrepreneurs, I forget the saying, but basically we work hard now so that later we can like make those choices to do those things. There's some saying along those lines that, you just have to want it, and you just have to know that you can do it. And it is a little bit lonely because you are, you're not like everybody else. A lot of people thought we were crazy, but now I don't know what our neighbors think of us. They see our cars here all day long. Sometimes they don't know what we do. It's you definitely kind of have to march by your own beat, I guess you say, getting into this, and you have to be okay with that.
What's been the hardest part of this syndication journey for you?
The hardest part? I don't know. I still feel like I'm just getting started in this. Like, I love what I do. I do. I just love it. I love that I have control over who I work with, whether it's an investor or a team member or a colleague. Like, if I don't like that person and if they're not a good person in my book, I don't have to deal with them. Like, I'm so grateful for that after being in a corporate job for so many years and having to work alongside somebody that is just a horrible person. Like, you just have to work with those people. You can't get away from them. So I think I'm most grateful for that. But what's the hardest thing is, I think it is the weight a little bit of having, I think I've raised up to about 75 million now of private money from people. And it's just knowing, even when you're tired, even when, no matter what happens, you can't quit because those people are depending on you. And also knowing that I have about 50 employees now. And so, I put a lot of stress on myself because I can't make a mistake. Like, I have those people, their family relying on me, investors relying on me. So it's putting that weight, I think, on. That's probably the most difficult thing, is that, if you screw up, it's not just you and your family, it's affecting just so many more people. So you have to, you always have to be on. You can't, it's hard to kind of stop, I guess would be what I'd say. Yeah.
Wow. 50 employees. That's incredible.
Yeah.
You've grown a great empire, that's for sure. And so, I'll tell the listeners too, we're going to have Maureen back numerous times to talk about some specific topics about the business. But before we run out of time, just a few more questions.
Sure.
And, what about a way that you were prepared? I like to ask guests, how they're prepared for another potential downturn. And it's like, we're in the middle of one now. If you could, kind of go back a little bit, how were you prepared for this, say, before it happened? Or how would you advise other people to be prepared in the future?
I mean, one of the biggest thing is reserves. We never know what's going to happen, no matter how experienced we are or, what we can see. I have a construction background. I can go through a property pretty good and get pretty zoned in on my CapEx budgets. And I know I can expect, depending on the year of the property, where it's located, maybe some potential risks that we have or things we have to protect ourselves against. But you still raise extra money. That the private equity portion you raise is the most costly of the money, right? So of all the funds that you raise, that's costly, but it's important to raise. So no matter what I think I need, I always raise another 250,000 minimum, and it just sits there. And a lot of times we'll sell that project and that money never got touched. And it's costly because we've held that for maybe 3 years or 4 years, and we've had to pay returns on that, but it's sleep good at night money. So our very first deal we did, 117 units, we did with $50,000 capital budget. So in hindsight, that was insane. And we survived, luckily, but in hindsight, I didn't, at the time in the beginning, you make these mistakes, you don't even know what you don't know. So like I said, it worked out great, but like now, if we were in that situation now and we had tenants like maybe not paying all their rent for a month or two or whatever, that could have sunk us. That could have done, just put us under, because we didn't have the money at the time to start doing this. I tell people on my first deal, I remember my partner, he said, "Hey, can you pay the video guy $750?" And now I've been out of work a year now. My savings went down. And I was just like, where am I going to get $750? And I couldn't tell him. Like, I felt terrible. All my credit cards were maxed from doing these real estate events. It was horrible. But my whole point to that is now I'm well funded. We have reserve funds ourselves with our company. And so have somebody experienced look at your capital budget for you would be my number one advice. And make sure you have that reserve, because that's really what can make or break a deal, just being able to ride through those, roller coaster kind of events.
What's a way that you've recently improved your syndication business that we could apply to ours?
Let's see. Probably getting reporting down. We use a company called Juniper Square now to do our investor reporting, and they're good. We like them. We switched from IMS. They have some factors. I hear some people that have switched from kind of what you like yourself, but it's just for the investors, you always want to have everything the same. Like, you don't want to have erratic reporting. You just want everything to always look the same. You want your reports going out on the same day. You want dividends to go out the same day of the month or the quarter. And that's what gives investors comfort. So for the syndication, I would say just make sure you have, and I have a girl, Jennifer, that's in charge of that. And she's awesome. She's so organized and she's so dedicated, and she's make sure nothing is ever missed. And that's I think the most important thing as far as the syndication business and dealing with investors. The other thing we've employed recently is through Traction, the EOS model, just to try to get the team talking together and everybody on the same page. Because sometimes we're just running and we don't realize some of the information doesn't get to the whole team, or sometimes it's hard to stay up with if you have a lot of capital projects running at once. So that's really helped us stay organized and kind of have everyone on the same page.
Number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Number one thing, I would say my ability to network and connect with people. I love this business, and I am truly interested when I meet all people of all aspects. Like, I love hearing how somebody does something a little different, or I'm truly I'm willing to help. I tell people sometimes it's hard to catch me, but if you can catch me, I'll always answer anything for you. And it's just, I think just loving what I do and being able to meet great people like yourself and, others interested in this. I'm so grateful for what I get to do every day. So even when it sucks, I still kind of like it. So, so that's, I think it's just networking and not holding back. I've never been fake. Like, what you see is what you get, truly. I don't have much of a filter. It just kind of comes out of my mouth. And so, but I think that has not only been great for raising funds, but also just meeting other great people in this industry that I can, ask any question to.
Was there a way that you developed that networking skill or grew into that, or is it just something you've always loved to do and been good at?
People have asked me like, "Oh, can you give me tips?" And I tell them, just be yourself. One of the things I did learn when I was younger and I had to go for interviews, and I used to be nervous about like going in for the interview is, and I'm not sure why, it just kind of clicked in my head. Like, I said, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to pretend that the person I'm interviewing with is like a person I kind of know, like their parent. Like, so that was always my mindset coming in. Like, one of my friends, this is their like mom that I'm going to see, or their dad or their uncle. So I'm kind of related. Like, I kind of like, I get the attitude like I already had the job. And after I started doing that, there was never an interview where I didn't get my job. Like, it never failed me because I always would go in so comfortable. And I think I've just learned to kind of create that mindset where it kind of takes that fear out of it, or that uncomfortableness, where it's all about the story we tell ourselves, right? So you have to learn how to kind of work with your own brain to make sure you don't get psyched out when you meet people. And I say, if somebody doesn't like me, I'm okay with that because I probably don't like them either. So it's all right. Like, there's other people in the world. It's not everybody has to like me. It's cool.
It's great to just have that confidence. I think it helps you to approach a conversation or networking much differently. I like how you think about that. And before we have to go, tell us how you like to give back.
Well, we do like to give back. Not only do we donate to great causes, we're heavy donors of the Operation Underground Railroad. We've been very involved with that. My whole team, some of you know Will too. I know, so we've partnered up on some events for that and things like that. They save kids from the sex trafficking industry, which is a horrendous thing. There's a movie coming out called Freedom. And it's something that's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to see that, but I mean, it happens right here. It happens under our nose. I've been in like a restaurant in Atlanta, and I go in the room and they have like these shots you can order. It's like a code for like, call the police. I think they call it, I don't even remember what the name of the shot was, but if you order it with a lime or without a lime, it meant certain things. I'm like, what a great thing, but why is this here? Like, I was totally unaware of it until I really started traveling around. I met other people that were involved with raising money for this foundation. And when you start hearing of the horrific things and the ages of the kids involved, you think, oh, teenagers, they run away, they get addicted to drugs. These are like 6-year-old kids. It's crazy. So I don't know. It's such a good cause to, I think, to help out with, and, the people that have really stuck their necks out to try to help girls and boys. There's, that kind of get involved in this stuff. So that's something we do, but I love to support too the local community. I'm a huge supporter of the police. We've teamed up on a lot of our properties. I say without their support, we couldn't do what we do. And they usually appreciate us, that we're actually responsible owners that will help them, helps their jobs be easier, helps them be safer. As well. We put things like camera systems in our complexes. We give them the codes. We'll also support, if they have a Christmas party or they are accepting donations to do things with kids in the community, or they need a facility for something. We've, sometimes we'll let our amenities, let them borrow them or whatever. Anything we could do to help the community and try to support people, trying to make each of our communities better. So. We do a ton of stuff. I should list it out sometime, but I just like to give. We don't look for recognition.
Sure.
So.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Maureen. I thank you for just sharing on the show too, and just being so willing to share from your experience and help educate all of us. And I look forward to having you back numerous times to just really focus on some different topics that I know you're very experienced in and can help all of us. But tell the listeners now how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Sure. So our website is www.4m, that's the number 4m like Miles, rei.com. So www.4mrei.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. You could look me up, Maureen Miles. And also my email is mmiles@4mrei.com. So like I said, I'm always willing to answer questions too. You just got to catch me. So.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.